Okay, so I just want to introduce today Charli McLachlan coming here today from Tauranga, New Zealand. Um, she is an emotional strength and trauma coach, and she specializes in narcissistic abuse and religious abuse. So please, Charli, just go ahead and share a little bit about yourself with us.
Kia ora. Hello, thank you for having me. Jumping straight in, eh? So emotional strength and trauma coach is how I now show up in this space in the world of work. But first and foremost, I'm a mum of two very, very awesome teenagers and two young teenagers. So we're kind of in that really colourful little age phase. That's really neat. I love it. Single mum of those two, I think I said. And yeah, living in Tauranga in New Zealand, which is a really sunny place to be. So that's really good for the mental health, good for the beautiful environment. I've been working as an emotional strength and trauma coach out on my own for basically, give or take, about 1 year. But to jump into this field, it's actually a culmination of my life's work, really. You don't get to be a trauma coach without going through a journey of trauma. Yeah. So, and before being officially a coach, my background's in education and psychology in the social sector. So in one way or another, I've always worked with people, and it's all about people. And everybody, what I've learned is we all show up in how we see the world, and we're formed to have that view based on how we were brought up and what we've experienced, right? And 75% of that is our trauma.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. People hear the word trauma and think, but no, it's just a part of our humanity, a part of our shared humanity. And so now I work in this space and I get to work with just all kinds of powerful, brave, vulnerable people who are ready to talk about it, have truthful, honest, hard conversations, look inside and do the self-work.
That's amazing. So it sounds like you're really helping people to be vulnerable and courageous in their own lives.
I try.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about like your own past, your childhood growing up here in New Zealand.
So there's a whole bunch of privilege that goes with growing up in New Zealand. Let me start with that. It's been a beautiful and for the most part, from a generalized perspective, a safe upbringing. But how you navigate that safety when it comes down to each and every individual family and individual upbringing. So I was raised by a single mum with a younger brother as well, who did the best she can. So there's a whole story to that, a whole journey to that. But to sum it up, she did the best that she could at the time with what she knew. Does that mean that it was the best for me? No. Does that mean it was the safest for me? No, not at all. So it's this kind of nitty-gritty gray area of accepting her as a separate human and loving myself into a place of that healing and that acceptance, and realizing that I am worthy of things that I didn't receive, but I'm now able to work hard to implement. I was raised very religiously as well. I grew up in a Christian household, but quite an extreme Christian household. So not only was my family Christian, I was then put into a very religious Christian school as well. So I was just surrounded by all these rules and all of these messages that said to me, if you step outside of these lines, then you go to hell. Yeah. So I had a lot of fear and a lot of control my whole life. Yeah. And then when I was a teenager, I met a man who I was, again, long story short, pressured by the church and by the Christian family to marry. He was a Christian man as well. And so I got married at 20. I'd been with him for a couple of years, got married at 20. And that whole journey, again, that's a whole nother story. But it's interesting what happens in our childhood and the conditions we're used to and the hoops we're used to jumping through and the way we've been conditioned to say yes and not question anything and not put ourselves or our desires first. It's amazing how all that conditions you to then act a certain way when you then get married as a young Christian woman and have young children young. Yeah, so there's been a lot of that. You can probably put the pieces together.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing, well, you kind of already covered the start of my next question is obviously when your toxic relationship began. So obviously we heard that that was in your high school years or 18 or so, together for a couple of years, got married at 20.
Yeah.
When did you notice that the toxicity beginning? And like what did that look like?
Truthfully, I never noticed it for a long time. It wasn't until literally 12 years on our 12th wedding anniversary, actually. So after 14 years of being with him, we'd had a really big explosion. Some repeated behavior had happened again. He had gone through the processes of, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to change. And then, oh, no, it's actually your fault. You're the crazy one.
Yeah.
And I was just in this head spin of, I literally just broke down. I sort of took a pillow to my bedroom and I just let all my anger out in the bedroom because I was so crazy.
Yeah.
But and then my body needed to move. So it was a pillow was the best I could do. And I ended up dropping to the floor, bawling my eyes out, and realized I just heard this voice inside of me. Nothing is changing. Nothing's ever going to change. If you want change, you have to change the environment you're in.
Yeah.
It was that simple. So some people call that a spiritual thing. I call it a gut instinct. It's like I was 32 years old then. So it's like Mama Charlie finally kicked in.
Yeah.
At 32 years old, I wasn't a scared little girl anymore. I was like, get off the floor, get the fuck up. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
No, you're good.
That's how real it was for me. It was get the fuck up. This isn't changing. You're going to be the one that changes. Yeah, it was very unpleasant shuffle to get myself and my children out of the house, but we got out of the house.
Yeah.
So that was my moment. So I never knew that I was living in it. I just knew that I was living in chaos, and I had been bred to believe that it was my own mind.
Yeah.
I got myself straight into a psychologist's office literally within days. I mean, I was very lucky. I don't know how it was such a blur. I don't even know how it happened, but clearly I called somebody and I got in, and they sort of sat down and they gave me water because I was very flustered because it was a really stressful situation for me. I was scared. I had never been alone because from being a teenager, I had always been with someone, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know the law or the legalities. So I was scared. Got myself into a psychologist's office, and she sat me down and she gave me my water and my tissues, and she just said, breathe. And she said, I need you to know something. I need you to hear this. Okay. You've been dealing with narcissistic abuse. I was like, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of this word.
No.
And this is 5 years ago. This is only 5 years ago. And I was like, what are you speaking to me? Like I had no clue. And she just started to explain a couple of things very gently and very slowly because I was in a very, very traumatized state.
Mm-hmm.
And it was slowly from there. We had multiple sessions, weekly sessions. I had weekly therapy for 3 years, 3 years straight. And then after that, I had sort of fortnightly to monthly. So I still engage with my therapist too myself. Despite being a coach, I still need that support for me too.
100%.
So that was my moment. I never knew. I got myself the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
And then a psychologist was like, hey, this is serious. And then from there, I've just researched and learned so much on my own.
It is crazy. Like my story, like when I dealt with a narcissist was about 6 years ago, and I had no idea what narcissism was either until someone told me. And I was like, what the hell is this? And then you opens your eyes and you can see it like everywhere. Like it's
you cannot unsee that. You can't put it back in a box once you know.
Yeah.
And once you realize the effect it had on you, that you were never crazy, you were never freaking psycho thing or the overreactive one. You were responding to really traumatizing circumstances.
And I think a little bit of what you call reactive abuse sort of thing sometimes as well.
100%.
Yeah. Okay, so that was amazing. I guess inside that relationship with your ex, like what were the most apparent toxic traits in the end there? So was it just the fact that he wouldn't change, or like was he lying or gaslighting, or like what was it that he was doing?
Well, I found out towards that mark, which had led to the current issues that we'd been having at that time, I had learned that he was a sex addict, and I hadn't known.
Yeah.
So that all came to the forefront, and that's not pretty. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties, but holy moly, that is like
heartbreaking,
so traumatizing. And to realize I didn't know, I'd been living with someone for 14 years and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like what I thought of myself was crazy. So there was that aspect, and then there was the constant infidelity on top of that.
Yeah.
But I had stayed and stayed and stayed and stayed, because you don't leave your husband in the Christian world. But that finding that out was the final straw. So forgetting that final straw, what I had been living with was a whole bunch of just that coercive control.
Yeah.
That expectation compiled with like religious expectation as well. So that's very patriarchal, and how women should look and act and shut up and serve and shut up and take it and just perform and do all the things, cook the dinners, have the meal on the table when they walk in the door, greet them with all this, and getting nothing back ever. Raising my children completely alone in terms of like the real emotional provision kind of stuff, There was none of that shared stuff. When I became a single mum, my first realization was that, I've always been a single mum. I now just have one less child. Dare I say that?
Yeah.
But it was like this breath of fresh air, because I had just been giving and giving and giving of myself to the point of utter depletion. Yeah. So that was all the stuff that I'd been living with, religious control with male dominance, feeling like shit about myself as a human, as a woman, as a mum. And then finally to learn about the years of infidelity that I'd been living with without knowing.
Yeah.
I broke open.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure a lot of that behavior that he was eliciting towards you, like that control, was to ensure that you didn't see what was going on. So I guess my next question as well, you kind of covered there a little bit about how you felt bad about yourself, was how did this situation affect your self-esteem? Or was your self-esteem from childhood already low and it just got even more low as you got older, as you were in this relationship?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Actually, I've not reflected on that a lot. I'm naturally a very confident person. I'm an extrovert. And I'm very socially, relationally wired. So I've always kind of had that as like this safety net for me, I guess. So when I've had shittle self-esteem, I've had this faux confidence that I can tap into. And I've had this level of, because I'm so extrovert and relational, I attract people, which would kind of boost my ego a little bit. Not in a nasty way. Like, I'm human. I'm allowed to kind of have this, know. So in a way that would make me feel like, oh, no, I'm okay. Oh, no, people do like me. Oh, I do have a place here. And that would kind of boost my faux confidence, just very surface level. But underneath it all, I had absolutely no self-worth whatsoever. I had never in my whole life been taught self-worth, because as a good little Christian girl, what are you taught? You are taught to perform for others. You are taught to perform for God. And if you don't, like I said, you're going straight to hell. So I didn't ever get to consider what I like, what I feel safe with, what I want to do, who I feel safe with. It was straight into living by the rule book. Excuse me. So while I never knew it, I had a very low self-worth. And that, of course, led to very low self-esteem, which is what led me to, meet a guy. Yep, okay, he's the one, that's it. Because the voices were, yep, he'll look after you. Because, of course, I was taught you can't look after yourself.
Yeah.
As a modern woman, I mean, how dare we think we could possibly provide and look after ourselves?
Yeah.
So, So then by the time I kind of was in my marriage, I had a low self-esteem, but I'd given all my worth to him to dictate. So I was worthy of whatever he thought I was. And then when I left him, crying on the floor in the kitchen with absolutely no shred of worth, identity, or esteem within myself.
Yeah, I feel that 100%. Did anybody else notice what was going on within your relationship? Or did they speak up or say anything to you?
No, that's the heartbreaking part. Nobody ever did. looking back, some people have said to me since, oh yeah, we could tell he was a real creep. And I'm like, you never told me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what's with that? I lost my family as a result of leaving my husband. I put it down to the religion as well.
Yeah.
They haven't spoken to me to tell me why they would cut me off. But
Yeah.
so I didn't even have family to sort of turn to. They ousted me for leaving my husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, and no, people who knew me before and then know me now, they say you are not even the same woman. Like you don't even look the same. Like physically, I've changed as well as my words, my thoughts, my behaviors, my actions, my job. Yeah. So I
Everything.
wish somebody had said something, but they didn't, and that becomes a part of the story. My whole world, remember, was in the church and religion, no. So why would they? They all echoed the same story of forgive your husband, support your husband, shh, don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. And it all
Yeah.
just enables the abuse to continue, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. It's just a cesspool.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had that little thought in my head, those without sin cast the first stone. Um,
Yeah.
um, sorry. Um, and yeah, I guess so. Obviously, your business started after you left the relationship. Was there
Yeah.
anything that you noticed going into creating this business that any of the toxic traits or the way that you felt about yourself in that relationship start to show up in the way you were trying to develop this business? Like, were you feeling, unable to do it because you felt that low self-worth, or were you feeling, like were they try like did that relationship impact you in a way that was like at risk,
Yeah.
like risking that future business?
Yeah. So really, really terrifying. I won't lie. I'm a very big fan of feel the fear and do it anyway. And that is literally my daily life story. Still
Mm-hmm.
now, my business has taken off quite successfully. I partner with a lot of organizations such as like Women's Refuge and non-domestic violence services, sexual assault services. So I partner with these amazing people. That's the beauty of where this job has brought me, and I get paid to basically show up and talk about my life story.
That's amazing.
But it's freaking terrifying, and every day it's freaking terrifying. The scariest part for me was creating my socials, the way I show up socially online,
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that I would be online stalked. I knew that I would be online harassed by people you can obviously imagine, piece it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that has happened. And that's scary and it's isolating, but it's the same scary and isolating that I always lived with in the relationship. So it's kind of less scary and isolating because I've got the power. I'm like, well, when you talk disgustingly about me online, you're kind of showing yourself now, buddy.
Yeah. And you see them for
Yeah,
who they truly are, don't you? You're just like, ugh, you're
yeah,
gross.
definitely. Leaves a funny taste in your mouth. And
Mm.
yeah, so it's really scary. I actually put off doing this for a very long time. But it got to the point where there was just this precipice that was like, it's now or never, girlfriend. What are you going to do? Are you going to let fear control everything, or are you going to just be brave like you encourage everybody else to be brave?
Yeah.
And I stepped off that ledge and the doors just opened up. But I certainly do it scared. Not afraid of what could happen to me from somebody else, but yeah, it's not comfortable doing the work. It's not comfortable having these feelings of, am I good enough? I have that self-talk of, who the hell am I to be doing this? Why am I doing this? You're just that, scared, crazy little girl crying on the floor. Who are you?
Yeah.
But so I work with one-on-one clients, and then I'd run these bigger kind of workshops and courses. And yeah, every single person, because I work with men as well, so not just women, I work with
Oh,
youth
awesome.
of all genders. And to see the light in their eyes come back is so freaking powerful. And it's almost like a mirror, because I'm like, that's right. I remember
Yeah.
that. I remember that. I see it was me. And then I get feedback from them as well, where it's like, thank you so much. You've literally changed my life. You've helped me out. You've given me this courage. So that kind of outweighs my own daily fear grind.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's great, amazing to hear that you're working with both men and women and children, well, youth as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I think that's where, like, when you get to them at the young age, obviously, their lives
yeah.
can be completely different.
Oh, imagine if these younger ones could have the skills that we just didn't have, eh?
Yeah,
Oh, what that would do if I had been 14 and had the skills.
same, 100%. But yeah, and I guess so, like, one reflecting back, you know, like, what lessons did you learn during that time of toxicity, like that you were able to transfer to your business?
I learned who I am. I learned how fucking worthy I am of just existing and being a human and feeling joy, getting out in nature and loving myself. I learned that I'm worthy of safety
Mm-hmm.
and I'm worthy of being protected and I'm worthy of like health and good things. I'm worthy of kindness and compliments and friendships.
Mm-hmm.
I just, yeah. So despite going through horrific trauma, I learned who I am. I learned what I love. I learned how fucking strong I am. Like,
Yeah.
this is the courage journey. And this is why I'm so passionate about this work. I'm like, you can do this too. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm so brave and strong, but so are you. Like,
Yeah.
we actually are, despite having it conditioned out of us. Yeah, I just learned that I am this awesome human being who deserves awesome things.
Yeah.
And I'm not alone. Everybody is. That's the thing. Abusers too, if they would get their fucking healing sorted. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that's
you know,
right.
this isn't like, I'm not here to tarnish fucking abusers. Yes, they need to be accountable and they need boundaries and stay away from me. But freaking heck, I wish them nothing but healing.
Yeah, 100%. Because they were just little sad children at one point as well.
Exactly. They are just victims of the same shit.
Mm-hmm. So what is the one thing, the advice that you would give a woman currently in a toxic relationship trying to develop their business or running a business?
I would say that there is room for you out here. You are needed out here. So get out here and it is safe for you to be out here.
Yeah, that's
It is
beautiful.
safe for you to show up and put all of you out there.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
They don't want you to,
No,
which
they don't.
means take your power back and you do this and you will find your people out here.
That's right.
I'm one of them. Like, if you need that support, like, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's amazing. And I just want to thank you, Charli, for coming along today and sharing your beautiful story and especially your beautiful New Zealand story. And yeah, I just wish you all the best with your business and all of the amazing, beautiful people that you're helping.
Wicked. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being able to share this space and talk with you.
That's awesome. Thank you for being here.